So first thing I'll talk about is the fact that I just realized I did not follow my 46 to 52 rule. I mentioned it for the first time 2 episodes ago, I think. I titled the episode in question 46 to 52, and then I proceeded to not follow the rule. So I'm going to start by following that rule. So this episode will be at least 46 minutes. What am I going to talk about first? Okay. Bad habits. I think an idea I have about bad habits, as it pertains to me, is I think that bad habits, things like this, things like eating unhealthily, things like wasting time, stem from having a boring life. There's a quote. I just noticed that the camera is not where I thought it was. And I've been looking at the punching bag, thinking the camera was right in front of it. But the camera's here. The idle mind is the devil's workshop. I think that all my negative habits, all the things I do wrong, stem from the fact that I lack structure and purpose in everyday life. I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption. And so I've done this exercise recently. Before going to bed, rewind your day. Rewind what happened in your day. What did you do just before going to bed, and before that, and before that? Just it put it into perspective. I knew it was a fact, but it put it into more perspective. The idea that I didn't do anything that day. Throughout the whole week, I don't do anything. And I have this routine that I haven't stuck to recently. My morning routine. I'm more productive in the morning. I have just been going to bed late, waking up just before work, not even showering, then going to work. So I work for 7 hours, no break. I leave an hour early to go to work. I get home an hour after work. So that's 9 hours where I don't do anything. It counts as not doing anything, even though I do try to push myself to do things that are productive at work and to improve myself. I still count those as 9 dead hours. Then I go home, I'm tired, I watch some videos, I eat, I watch a film and go to bed late. So that's a whole day of doing nothing. And that's because I lack the structure to know when I come home, this is what I should do. And anytime I do find myself in that routine, everything feels better. So I think this stems from having a boring life. I think I need to force myself out of having this boring life. Now we're going to make this more personal. That could be the title, actually. That could be the title. I am a loser. That's just a fact. And I think you can get addicted. I think the same way you can get addicted to things like this, which are bad for your health and don't have any long-term benefits at all. The only short-term benefit really is the nicotine is addictive, and these are very sweet. The same way people get addicted to drugs, addicted to all kinds of things which are, there's another word for negative. Things that just damage them, right? I think it's the same with being a loser. I think you can get addicted to it. And so, what is the upside of being a loser? It's easy. They say more money, more problems. I've never been wealthy and successful, but I do believe that it's more difficult. Obviously, it's more difficult to get there, but to stay there is also more difficult than to stay where I am. So I think I've become addicted to being a loser, which is a very sad thing to say. But I think I'm just so comfortable there. I work the hours I need to work, come home, do nothing, not working towards anything. So, obviously that's something I need to work on and change. But I'm realizing I have become addicted to it. I'm making all the choices required to stay there. I've been a loser my whole life. And I suppose it's difficult to get out of a way of being which you're so used to. Alright, that was boring. I think it was two Sundays ago, went out with some friends. It was colleagues. Went out with some colleagues. It was one of my colleagues' birthday. We were supposed to get there at 2, I got there at 5. And it was just two of my colleagues there, outside of a bar. And they were drinking. They had ordered some food that was gonna come. I started drinking with them. One of them was already very drunk, sleep deprived. The other one was not quite drunk yet. And we received the food, and a homeless guy walks by, asking for money. Now they ignore him, and I say, sorry mate, don't have any cash. And he walks away. And then the friend that was very wasted, very drunk, and sleep deprived, and all sorts of things, as the guy is walking away, he says, oh wait. So the guy comes back, and this guy, my colleague, looks at me and smiles this evil smile, this horrible smile, this pretentious, self-assured smile as he looks at me, as he's tapping his pockets. And as the guy returns, he tells him, oh, I wasn't talking to you. Now, I suppose I could have missed the attempt at a cruel joke, but I didn't. And I was a bit drunk. And the meanness of the joke and his smug face in front of me was so overwhelming that I couldn't help but laugh. This kind of uncontrollable laugh. So I put my head in my shoulder, leaned on the table to hide away in shame, because that was a very mean thing to say, and I was just adding to the meanness of the whole situation. So I didn't want anyone to see me laughing. So I did that. I laughed in my elbow for a good 5 seconds. Then I emerged, still laughing. And my other friend started laughing. And the joker was just smiling, content. The joke landed. So the homeless guy who was walking away returns, angry. Now, he wasn't just a homeless guy, he was a junkie as well. But he didn't find the joke funny. So he says, oh, so you thought that was funny? Or you think that was funny, I think he said. And he puts his hand on the table where we have, I think, 5 beer glasses. I don't know why. There's only 3 of us. And a Sunday roast, another plate of a bunch of food. And he just wipes everything, slaps it onto the floor. Most of it falls onto the joker. The beer, the food, shattered glass. And then the junkie walks away. And I'll definitely use that situation in a film, because that joke, man, the meanness, how mean that joke was, how mean-spirited, just tells you about the character of a person, I think. And the junkie walks away, but the joker is not satisfied with the situation now. He had the upper hand with the joke, and now his food is on the floor, he's covered in beer. He's the one who's been made to look like a fool after that. So he wants to fight the other guy. He stands up and he says, oh, I just want to go talk to him. And my colleague and I, we stop him. We bear hug him. He's getting more and more agitated. We contain him. After a while of him trying to break free and saying, I just want to talk to him, I leave my other colleague with him, bear hugging him. And I go inside to tell the people in the pub about the situation, so that they don't think that we are responsible. So I go tell some waitress, hey, some guy knocked her food on the floor. And I follow her outside, I open the door, and as I do, my colleague my colleague, who was in charge of containing the situation, pulls out a judo throw. He flips the Joker over his shoulder and onto the floor. And as he does so, the Joker's leg or his foot is underneath, just next to a chair, and the chair goes flying onto the street, onto the road. And here's the Joker on the floor, my other colleague standing over him, and the waitress who's just been told that someone, knocked the food on the floor. Now the situation doesn't get any more interesting than that. But, the Joker stands up. He's been cooled down now. He's not trying to fight the junkie anymore. And we move on. But I just thought that joke, man. And his smug face. What a mean joke. What an ugly situation. Which can bring me on to my next point, actually. This point is on retention. Retention. Having spent most of my life not quite, pretty much half of my life being addicted to pornography, I have had a very skewed, distorted perception of what, not just sex, of everything pertaining to sex. My own body, my idea of everything. And if you're someone who's been addicted to pornography, it's not even just pornography. The point I'm making is more on just the act of ejaculating, essentially. I guess I'll be honest, there were days where I would just do it all day, quite literally. All day. Ejaculating more than 5 times. Which is disgusting when I think about it. I mean, porn, everything about it is disgusting. And in the past few months, I had seen many videos on semen retention. And since I gave up pornography, when I did that, I also gave up masturbation. And now I have a girlfriend. And I'm still thinking of that it makes sense to practice semen retention. And it's not something that's really, it's not an idea that is talked about a lot. When we think of sex between a man and a woman, it's a known fact, almost, I would say, that, well, actually, when people talk about sex between a man and a woman, it seems like a woman reaching orgasm is not the priority in a weird way. That it's done when the man ejaculates, and then whether the woman did finish doesn't matter as much. And my understanding of it from first-hand experience is that it should be the opposite in terms of, I don't think that as men, we get the most pleasure from sex. I don't think that ejaculating is actually even a good thing, really. Yeah, I don't think ejaculating as a man is a good thing. I think you get the short-term hit, just like with this. You get your orgasm, and it feels good. But afterwards, it doesn't feel... There's no long-term benefit to it, as far as I'm concerned. Whereas, not ejaculating, there is a benefit to it. Whether you just practice, I suppose it's called chastity, just no intercourse, no masturbation, nothing, and you do your semen retention thing, or you do engage in sexual activity without finishing. There's a tremendous benefit to that. Semen it's life. right? There's millions of cells in there that could potentially become a new life form. So it's not something that should be treated the way it is. And I'm also realizing that as a man, power is the ultimate thing, I think. I mentioned before, men get the money, the wealth, the status symbols, everything to achieve a sense of power. They get the women, they want the prettiest women. Ideally, you're smart enough to understand you need a woman that you're compatible with a similar, IQ and everything. All these things, as far as I understand them, give you a sense of power. And I think with semen retention, retaining it, once again, whether that is through chastity or through just retaining it, even though you do engage in sexual activities, that absolutely gives you a sense of power. Now, when you think about it logically, that is this immense, powerful thing that is semen that you're keeping inside of yourself, but also the mental components, the benefits, is enormous. Knowing that you have the self-control to not release, I suppose you could say. All this to say that I aspire to be able to control myself, and I don't think, and so when it comes to sexual intercourse, to me, pleasuring the woman is what I derive the most pleasure from myself. And people talk a lot about post-nut clarity. I think that comes mostly from people having casual sex with other people and realizing when they orgasm that it's a mistake. I don't get that after having sex, because I don't fuck around. I'm not a promiscuous person. But when I used to masturbate, I would, because I would feel shame. Not shame in the sense of, if you're Christian, you believe that God is watching you and what you did was shameful. Just pure shame. Understanding that what I did wasn't beneficial. Just like when I consume these, I feel a sense of shame, because I understand I am damaging myself. It's a stupid thing to do. So I feel the same about ejaculating. And from experience, once again, having sex and not ejaculating carries this long-term benefit, this sense of power, literally, that is amazing. So I'm saying this because recently I watched a video, a few weeks ago, and people were asked, I think it was Fresh and Fit, and they asked the ladies on the panel, what is more important during sex, male satisfaction or female satisfaction? And they're pushing this red pill agenda of women deserve less and men need to be put on this pedestal. Now, I am paraphrasing. I agree with some of the things they talk about, but I think they put this enormous emphasis on this idea that the man is superior, essentially, which I don't agree with. But they ask all the ladies on the panel, and I suppose at this point in the show, the ladies have been made to understand that the persons who run the show would 100% say that male satisfaction is more important. This idea that the woman needs to be submissive, her role is to please her man. And I think that's completely backwards, personally. If you're having sex with someone, you're trying to please each other. It's not a question of who needs to be pleased more. And the way they talk about it is definitely this idea that the woman is here to please the man. That's her role, that's her job. And so she needs to make sure he finishes, and then the job is done. That's what sex is supposed to be according to them, which I disagree with. Once again, just from personal experience, and it's not something I had thought about previously, but I'm definitely realizing that I derive the most pleasure in a sexual encounter, or not encounter, during sex, from pleasing my partner. And the orgasm doesn't, in the long term, doesn't benefit me. It's just a short-term thing. And on the topic of retention, which I believe is one pillar of Stoicism, I think retention needs to be practiced in everything in order to be strong. So, anger, for example. Once again, it's this idea, just step outside of yourself when you're angry and notice how stupid you look and how stupid you are, and just chill. There's no benefit from acting on anger and releasing that anger. And in the long term, I guess the goal is to get into a place where you don't snap and get angry when something happens, when things don't go your way. Is this still recording? It looks like it. Oh yeah, I can't see the back of my camera now because I moved it. I moved it to hide my nipples. Hopefully they're out of frame. But so yeah, this idea of retention is something that I'm thinking about a lot recently. Whether that be, so emotions in general. Learning to be more stable, more balanced. And definitely anger. I'm not someone who snaps at people regularly in a showy, obvious way. But sometimes at work, things happen that make me angry. I don't necessarily show it, but once again, I feel the shame of snapping. I don't like it. I don't like this sense of losing control. So, retention. Retention is something I need to practice. I think it's a very powerful thing. I think when you practice it and you become better at it, it improves your sense of self-esteem in an enormous way. And once again, I talked about it in terms of, we all know we should be able to control our anger. But I think when it comes to semen retention, I think it's something that people don't really even think about and the benefits of it. What else? Swearing is something I'd like to cut down on. So I need to stop that. Well, I don't have much notes today. Oh, tonight is UFC 295, I believe. I can talk about that. I think it's the event that is the least likely to be disappointing this year that I can think of. The main event, light heavyweight championship. You have the very unorthodox Jiří Procházka against the best striker in the UFC in Alex Pereira. Knockout machines. I think the four main fighters, they have a 92% finishing rate. So it's very unlikely it's going to be disappointing, which means that if it is somehow, then it's going to be extremely disappointing. So in the main event, both fighters are strikers. Procházka doesn't have great defense. He's definitely not as sharp as Pereira as a striker. He's mostly a puncher. His ground game is definitely superior to Pereira if he can get him there. I think it's going to be mostly on the feet. I think Procházka can win by overwhelming Pereira, but it's more likely he's going to get caught by a shot. Then he might shoot. I don't think he has the ability to finish the fight. I think he's only going to shoot if he's in trouble on the feet, which means he'll be diminished in that position. So I don't think he's going to finish on the ground. I think he's going to get finished on the feet, most likely. And then Thomas Spinall against Sergey Pavlovich. I got Pavlovich. I think Tom, similar to Jiří Procházka, he has a tendency to leave himself open when he's striking. Chin up, rushing forward, Russian forward. I think he's going to be more careful because he understands the guy across him is a knockout machine. He's most likely going to try to take him down. And I think he has a huge advantage there. He's really good on the ground. He's huge. The other guy's huge too, but not sure. I think Tom's going to get caught by a shot and then finished immediately. But then he might shoot as well, and he would have the advantage there. I think Tom gets finished by strikes in a similar fashion that Pavlovich finished his last few opponents. And then, last note, basics. 7 days of silence was during the summer break for 7 days. No social media, no technology really. No phone, no laptop, no internet, and no human contact for the most part. I stayed inside and I felt amazing. I've never felt as good, I think, in my life for an entire week. Felt so good. So I think I might delete Instagram completely, delete my account. And also, I need to cut down on YouTube completely in terms of watching it. I need to cut it out of my life. It's weird. Why is it so difficult? It shouldn't be. The only thing I get from Instagram is those videos, those stupid memes and videos of people falling that I get sent by my friends and my brother. And YouTube is this constant stream of mindless entertainment. And sometimes informative stuff, but always leads down the rabbit hole of mindless entertainment. So, yes, it's this. What I did in this week, essentially, is that I lowered my threshold for what's boring. When there's no internet, after a few days, you get used to it. And then what feels boring lowers, the threshold lowers. I used books instead of YouTube, essentially, to entertain myself. I started making stuff more. And the thing with books is that they are as entertaining as videos, but they require you to work more for the entertainment. So I think this idea that my life is boring, which it is, I need, on one hand, to take steps towards making it less boring. I would love to join the boxing club, which is something I really need to do ASAP, which would be exciting. I need to do that. But also I need to lower my threshold. I need to stop engaging and indulging in this mindless entertainment as much as possible. Even music, podcasts, all these things, I need to lower the threshold. I need to cut these things out of my life to be more in control. It was a bit of a pain in the ass to set up this different camera angle. I won't do it again. It was just out of curiosity. Actually, I have no idea what it looks like currently. I asked my brother to set up the camera with some directions. Most likely, I keep moving in and out of focus. Most likely, I haven't been in focus for 99% of this video. It's also possible that it's overexposed. And because the plane of focus is so narrow, I have to be very still, which once again I've probably been unsuccessful at. We also have some guy, Saint-Denis against Matt Frovola at UFC 295. Should be a good fight. And Jessica Andrade against Mackenzie Dern. So really, really good main card. Really good main card. I haven't been working out regularly at all for the past month, really. Hardly working out. And this week I started getting back into it. I did push-ups in the morning and dips until failure. And for the first time in my life, I'm getting this soreness in my chest, my little bird's chest. And it's weird and I hate it. I don't like it. It just shows me how out of shape I am. It's horrible. Also, I did this thing. I used a still from a podcast, put it into Photoshop Beta, and asked the AI to make me look more muscular. This idea of visualizing, something a lot of people talk about, a lot of successful people talk about. And I thought, I'm going to get this image of me in the shape I'd like to be in, and then I'll look at it regularly, this thing that I'm working towards. And I went through all these different muscular bodies. Some of them were just preposterously big, which I have no interest in. They look ridiculous. And the leanest one I could find still, looked enormous in comparison to what I look like. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's the uncanny aspect of it, the fact that it looks a bit wrong because the AI is not at a point where it can deliver results on that scale that are true to life. But I kept going back and forth between this ideal body and then this current body. And I kept feeling like I prefer what I look like currently. And I'll use it as my thumbnail. It is still huge. I never want to look that big. But it made me think about this idea that I mentioned earlier, that anxiety and gratitude can't exist side to side in our minds, in our brains, Made me think how I should really be more grateful about what I have. My body functions perfectly, except when I hurt myself, which happens a bit too often. And just I kept going back between this ideal version, definitely what would be for most men the ideal version, this idea of being like huge, you can see all the muscles and everything is well developed. And then me, this skinny kid body that I have. And I kept thinking, I prefer the way I look. I suppose it's partly because the reason I work out is definitely not for aesthetic. If I could pick between that jacked body and my current strength, or looking the way I look and being twice as strong, I would pick looking the way I look and being twice as strong. So the driving force behind me working out is for longevity, because it's good for your health when you grow older if you've been exercising. It's good for your health in the short term currently if your body is stronger. It feels good. And 3, getting stronger. Just the idea of getting stronger, I enjoy. So it has nothing to do with looking a certain way. And yet, I do look at my body and think, I wish I was bigger. And it's crazy how I oscillate between these two of wanting to change, to evolve, and on the other side, understanding that I have everything I could ask for and I should be grateful for what I have. On one hand, this drive, this desire to improve is important. You have to have that to be great at anything. On the other hand, this ability to be grateful for what you have is needed, is required to be satisfied and happy in life. And it feels like I have to pick one or the other. I look at monks and people who are looked at as wise, people who have given up, for example, property, owning things, people who don't own anything, who seem to be very content with their life. They look great, right? The secret to success is understanding the meaning of life, is accepting what you have, is being satisfied, right? But those people don't change the world for the most part. You might think of someone like Gandhi, for example. But for the most part, the people who are content with what they have don't affect the world. So if you have a desire to affect the world and to be great and to have an impact, to make beautiful things, do you need to accept that you'll never be satisfied and happy? If you're always striving for more, Do you have to accept that you'll never be satisfied with what you have and therefore you'll never be happy? I don't know. Obviously, that's rich coming from me, who's admitted that I am addicted to being a loser and I'm not going anywhere at the moment. But that won't last forever. No. My God, yesterday I worked a double shift, which means I start at 10 a.m., I finished at 11 p.m. with a 1 hour break. And all my colleagues, that's what they do all week. And me, I did it once. And I don't understand. It's horrible. The thing is, with lunch is fast-paced, hectic. Return tables, boom, boom, boom. It's fast, it's unpredictable. And dinner is so slow. We have a set menu. It's just the same thing over and over again. There's less chance that things will go sideways, that there's less unpredictability. And it's so boring, it's so slow. We open at 5:30 for dinner until whenever the guests leave, which can be, they finished at 1:45 a.m. recently. And it's so boring. Suppose I need to lower my threshold for what's boring, but it's unbearable. It's much easier when it's hectic and you're running around and it's fast. That's enjoyable. I'm also thinking about I have colleagues who, when service starts, so at lunch where I work and it's hectic, and they get all stressed and they give off this bad energy. And I remember when I started working lunch, I hated it. I prefer dinner because it's so unpredictable now, and I had much less confidence than I do now. And I hated lunch because of the unpredictability. Then I adapted, and now I love it. And it's really crazy when I think about it, where I started and where I am currently. Even though for the past, it's like anything. When you start at something, you're going to suck for a while, but then you get this great growth at some point, and then it slows down. And when I started there, I couldn't imagine that I would ever be comfortable there. And now I am. I just think about how, and it's not like that for everyone, it's for me specifically, how uncomfortable I was interacting with people, with guests, taking orders, all these things, making sure I don't make a mistake that would mess up the whole service. That was so stressful. For the first few weeks on the floor, I never took an order. I let my colleagues take an order because I was scared of messing it up, because I understood that the repercussions could be quite bad. And now I don't care at all. I don't get a sense of nervousness at all during service. And it's been 2 years, so just goes to show that if you put your mind to something and you force yourself outside of your comfort zone consistently for a while, you'll get to where you need to be. You'll get there. If only I had done that with things that were more aligned with my goals in life, as opposed to being a waiter, which I still understand benefits me in the long run. I want to go to uni next year for my master's. I have until January, I think, to give, I think January. I'll try to do it before that, to give in my application. And since I didn't get a good grade, I need to produce some work that would be noteworthy. So I want to make a film. And then I'm struggling with that. But before that, I need to finish a video I started in December of last year, an animated video. I am not an animator. And I have hit so many roadblocks that I gave up multiple times. And the artist has been, I don't even know if the word is kind. It's beyond kind. In humoring me. But now I need to get it done ASAP. And animation is so grueling. It's boring, just like dinner service. Drawing the same thing with a slight modification. I'm just drawing the same thing almost over and over every frame. It's my background here, 2,760. The amount of frames I have to draw. It's so boring. I don't know why I can't do it. It goes back to the same thing. I need to lower my threshold for boring. Yeah, I guess it's that actually. I need to lower my threshold for what's boring and finish this bloody video. It's crazy. It's been weighing down on me since December now. And it's not good, right? It's something you can't just have this on your back and not address it and leave it there to fester. It's really been messing with me. And recently the artist contacted me. I haven't contacted him in months. And he contacted me asking me how it's going. And I was very honest. I was honest. I told him that it's been difficult and I apologized for being very unprofessional and not communicating with him. And he was very nice about it. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but I have wanted to contact him for months. But I was so ashamed that I was unable to deliver what I had promised, that I was struggling so much, that I had given up multiple times, that I didn't contact him. And once we did talk, he was so nice and graceful. And I realized how I had made this whole thing in my head. I had this stress and I wasn't addressing it. I was running away from it. And then poof, he just, got rid of it for me. And life is just like that. The first time I served a dish in the restaurant, after being on the floor for weeks, I realized there was nothing to it. It was easy, right? So you always need to go towards your fear. And you need to realize that a lot of the time the fear is the problem, not the thing. The fear is this thing that just grows in your head the longer you wait. And you blow out of proportion. And then once you actually go forward towards it, it's nothing. It's this nothing. And that's a thing I know. I know for a fact that it is true. And yet I don't apply it. That's the biggest problem in my life, fear. This reticence to go towards things that I understand are good for me. And yet I have this fear that stops me. There's this quote, bravery is not the absence of fear. It's doing something that you're fearful of despite the fear. And I suppose I need to accept that the fact that I am so full of fear is not a problem. That's not the problem. I am extremely full of fear, and that's okay as long as I force myself to keep going towards that fear. The problem arises when you're going back. Suppose just like if you're fighting and your opponent is very aggressive and you keep backing up, eventually you get caught. Unless you're a great counterpuncher. But even people like Floyd Mayweather, they wouldn't go a whole fight backing up. At some point you need to throw back. And in a case of fear, usually when you do take a step forward, the fear just dissipates. Keep checking the time. I'm in trouble. Like a fighter checking the clock continuously. Well, I won't compare myself to a fighter. Just a dude on a mattress. What title should I go for? Retention? Dude on a mattress? Whoa. Okay. Dude on a mattress, retention. How about boring? Boring is perfect. Boring is a perfect title. Yeah, boring. I think boring is the title of the episode. Yeah, that camera angle change didn't help. I feel so constrained here. Also, lack of preparation, as usual. All right. Thank you. Yes, and thank you.